Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone. Jrue Holiday is being traded back to the Portland Trailblazers for the second time in a few years. He went over to Portland through the Damian Lillard trade, coming from Milwaukee, was rerouted to Boston. Now he's going straight back to Portland, and it sounds like he might be staying there for real this time. And in exchange, the Boston Celtics get Anfernee Simons and 2 second-round picks. It is a shocking trade to happen right now out of all times. We knew Jrue was probably going to get dealt over the course of this summer. It was almost all but guaranteed when you consider the financial position that the Celtics are in and the fact that Jayson Tatum is out all of next season. This year is clearly shaping up to be a pivot season for the Boston Celtics, and this is the first move of those multiple that are probably going to be coming down the pipeline. Shams said after this notification that the Celtics are still engaged with potentially moving multiple key pieces, and Porzingis, I think, is obviously one of those, but could that mean Derek White potentially as well, who felt like the Celtics really didn't want to move off of? Could it be Jaylen Brown, or is there a world where they're entertaining offers for him? They've been tweeting out a lot of stuff that seems like they're recapping Jaylen Brown's career as a Celtic. I don't know. I don't think Jaylen Brown's on the market, but I've seen crazier things. We saw Luka Doncic get traded, so anything is possible. But it's the first of a multitude of moves for the Boston Celtics that are coming. And so I want to give my quick thoughts on this trade. First of all, for the Celtics side of things, I like this a lot. Not only do you move off of Jrue Holiday, who was making more money and is getting up there in age. He had 2 years left on his contract. He's got 25, 26, 26, 27, and then a player option after that. So there could be 3 more years of Jrue Holiday making over $30 million, and he is still really, really good, but he's pretty clearly declining. The shooting was not really where you want it to be this past season. Defensively, he was still phenomenal, but that is something that could also start to see a little bit of a drop. I mean, it's been dropping, even though he still is an amazing defender. He's not quite the defender he was over the previous few seasons. There was a noticeable drop off for Jrue Holiday over the course of this year, and it felt like the Celtics were going to have to potentially attach an asset to move off of Jrue Holiday's contract, but instead they get 2 second-round picks and a young guy in Anfernee Simons who's very interesting for them. He is expiring going into this season, so they basically have no commitment whatsoever. They can either A, bring Anfernee Simons in, they don't really love what they see, they don't want to really pay him, and they just let him walk, and suddenly they've got all this free cap space, or B, maybe there's a world where Simons figures it out here in Boston. He's had an up and down start to his career in Portland. There's been some really high highs, there have been some low lows. He's a microwave type of scorer who puts up threes with the best of them, and that's the system that the Celtics run. Bringing in Anfernee Simons, Joe Mazzulla feels like the exact type of coach for a guy of his play style, so maybe this is an environment where Anfernee Simons, given free reign and a lot of opportunity with no Tatum next season, they need some scoring. Simons can bring exactly that. Maybe this is where he finds kind of his niche. This is a spot where he becomes a critical player to the Boston Celtics and they can extend him, or maybe he puts up big numbers throughout the first half of the season, builds up trade value, and the Celtics can still flip him around the deadline. There is so much possibility here, whether you're just taking a swing of potential or you're just getting off of Jrue Holiday's contract or you're bringing in a couple of second-round picks. I don't see any reason why this isn't a home run for the Boston Celtics. Obviously, I'd say it makes them worse in the moment because I think Jrue Holiday is a better player and his defense is integral to what Boston does, but they're not trying to compete next season anyways. When Tatum isn't going to play all of next year, you are never going to realistically be a championship contender, and now they just go ahead and get to try something out. I think that's a similar route they should take with like the Kristaps Porzingis trade when they inevitably do it. They should try and bring in a young player of some kind or somebody that they could build up the value of and flip to create more flexibility, to continue to kind of kick the can down to the deadline, and then next summer, as you try and reevaluate what this roster should look like around Jayson Tatum when he returns for the 2026-2027 season, which, now that I say it out loud, is absolutely terrible. I hate that we're going to be missing Tatum and Dame and Halliburton, all those guys for next season. It absolutely sucks. But yeah, so the Celtics, we're always going to have to create salary space, but I almost feel like the fact that they're not going to have Tatum next year, it makes it easier for them. They don't really have to, kind of walk this fine line where it's like, well, we have Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown. We have to remain competitive, but we also need to shed salary space. Now they can, I think, just kind of say, screw it. Who cares what we look like next season? Honestly, it might be in our best interest to be bad and bring in a top pick to maybe add another high-level player next to Tatum or, use as a trade chip. But now they don't have to really worry about walking that fine line. They can just say, screw it. We're going to make the moves that are best for our financial future and then try and figure things out when Tatum returns next season. So we'll see what other moves are coming down the pipeline. But all in all, I think this is another phenomenal move from Brad Stevens, who is just one of the league's best general managers through and through. It feels like he's never really made a bad trade. I don't think there's been one transaction in Brad Stevens' tenure that I can think of, at least nothing major, that I've ever really been like, I don't know about that. I feel like I'm almost always always like, yeah, I mean, that makes 100% success. And most of Twitter is like, why are the Blazers doing this? Which is definitely the more confusing part of this whole equation. Like, I get it. All the logic I said from the Celtics side, it makes all the sense in the world. But for the Blazers, it is a little bit weird. Now, I do understand it somewhat. And from what Shams is saying, it sounds like Jrue Holiday's here to stay. I don't think they would trade Simons and 2 second-round picks just straight up for Jrue Holiday if they were going to move off of him. I don't think that makes any sense. I think they would just trade Anfernee Simons. So he's going to be here next season, and Jrue, he is still really good. Even though he's getting paid a lot, he's getting up there in age, and he's declining, his defense is going to bring something big to this Blazers team that is clearly trying to build up this defensive identity. I mean, now you've got Jrue, you've got Tumudi Kamara, who is all defensive, you've got the rim protection of a Donovan Clingan. I really think they need to move off of Ayton and or Robert Williams, at least one of the two, to clear up more space, because I think Clingan should be getting a majority of those big man minutes next season. Denny is a pretty solid defender too. Like, they're building up this really good defensive team. Jeremy Grant, when he's locked in, also can play some high-level defense. So it seems like they're trying to make a bit of a push, and they were pretty good defensively down the stretch last season. They made that push for the play-in, but ultimately fell a little bit short. So it seems like the Blazers are like, hey, we want to be competitive next season. And I don't hate that mindset from them. They did show serious growth, and I do think if this defense locks in the way that they showed at parts last season, now with Jrue in tow, and the offense can step up a little bit, the young guys can show some promise, some growth, building off of the flashes we saw last season, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that Portland could be a play-in team next year. Now, obviously, the goal should be much higher than that. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just can't imagine any of the top 8 teams falling out in favor of them. Like, maybe Memphis, if the injury issues continue to be a problem, but outside of them, I don't really see it. And I mean, I could see San Antonio jumping up into that spot. Maybe the Dallas Mavericks, if they're able to add a guard, because Kyrie's going to miss probably all of next season. And if Coop really looks like the guy that we kind of expect him to be from day one, it's just going to be hard for me to see them breaking into that picture. But obviously, like, there's no rush, I guess, because Jrue is getting old, but there is also then the other thought process where maybe Jrue just is really good next season and he rebuilds up some of his trade value, or even just in general, after this season, he'll have one less year on that contract, and maybe then you combine like him and Jeremy Grant, or him and some of your young guys, and you go for a star. Maybe that's the route that the Blazers are looking towards. They think that Jrue's contract, both right in the moment, him as a player will be helpful, but the contract itself later will be helpful in trying to add someone that's a little bit more impactful when a player that they think could be their guy becomes available. Because I don't think the Blazers have their guy right now. I don't think any of their young players are going to eventually be good enough to be a championship number one. So they're going to have to add somebody through a trade, or maybe they get this year's draft pick just 100% right and they find that guy here within the lottery. But that is, obviously a big swing, a big what if. So there are routes they can go. Like, this isn't just adding Jrue for the moment and them saying, we're going to be a playoff team, we're going to be, fighting for a top seed in the Western Conference, because that's unrealistic. That's not going to happen. But I think it's helping to build culture, maybe a little bit similar to what the Rockets did a couple of seasons ago, where they added Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks in that offseason when they were really bad, and everybody's like, what are they doing? And it didn't pay dividends right away, but you saw this season, they jumped to the 2 seed as their young players got rapidly better. I don't think the Blazers are on quite that trajectory, because I don't think, again, they have the top tier talent like a Şengün or an Amin Thompson, but they could still get those guys. They could use Jrue Holiday to acquire those players, and ultimately it could be just a good move in general in the long run. And clearly they didn't see Simons as a long-term piece. They didn't want to be the team that was going to have to pay him potentially this offseason. So they just went with the more established veteran player who is better at the moment, even if the potential for Simons, I do still think, is pretty high. Offensively, this team does still need to figure some things out. I don't know how I feel about this team offensively at all. I think it could be kind of a mess next season. Simons was easily one of their best shot creators. So we'll see. I mean, maybe there are more moves coming for Portland, or maybe they get that type of archetype of player with their lottery pick. Maybe that's the route that they go. But for the moment, at least a very intriguing trade. I'm excited to see what happens on both fronts with both of these teams going forward. I'm excited to see what else happens for the Boston Celtics here with more salary issues to be solved, more big-time moves potentially to be made with a Derek White, with a Kristaps Porzingis, maybe even a Jaylen Brown. And for Portland, the more I think about it, the less I'm like, what the hell are they doing? I do still think it's a little bit weird, just again, considering kind of the money with Jrue and Jeremy Grant. Because yeah, while you can't flip those guys, you're also going to have to pay Scoot, Sharp, like those types of young players, Tumudi Kamara at some point here soon, and those guys are going to command quite a bit of money, so it's going to become difficult. This is going to become a very expensive team. They've got to have a plan in place, basically, and I'm going to trust that they do, but if they don't, this could be looked back on as one of those, what were they thinking? Like, did they just make that move without any idea what they were going to do afterwards type of trades? But for the moment, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this deal. Who won? Who lost? Do you like it for both sides? Do you like it for one? Do you hate it for both sides? I would love to hear what you're thinking. I appreciate you all watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on future videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.